They're going to be interviewing Andrew from Solihull Metropolitan Borough Council, who is the Sustainability Engagement Officer. So I'll hand over to them now to go through the questions.
Hello. So our first question is, what is fair trade?
So what is what is fair trade? Fair trade can be described as a number of different things. You can go initially, we can talk about it sort of like generally as fairly trading. So that's the sort of the two-word phrase that we use. You know, it's fair and it's trade, and lots of badges, lots of products can use fair trade, the two words. Fair trade, capital F, all one word, is a mark from the Fairtrade Foundation. Now, this covers a whole load of work that they do. So there's a charitable arm and there's also a more commercial arm. The more commercial arm has the badges. So if you pick up your Kit Kat or your tea bags and they've got a fair trade mark on it, behind that fair trade mark is a certification scheme. So that proves that that particular product will have met certain criteria, and those criteria are environmental criteria, social criteria, the trading criteria, and economic criteria, which almost over support the efforts of the more charity side. So the whole point of the Fairtrade Foundation isn't just to certify products, it's to move people from being, in essence, exploited, so not treated as perhaps we would like ourselves. So fair wages for fair pay, the opportunity to have good health outcomes, have good educational outcomes, to basically have a good quality of life, and to be sort of, as I say, free from exploitation, free to get a you know, fair reward for a hard day's work. So they're the sort of the two sides of the sort of what is fair trade, and they both work together for these overseas producers.
Thank you. That's really good. That's amazing, the stuff that you do. I just wondered, could you tell us a bit more about the Fairtrade, the charity side? Because we weren't sure whether it was a charity or a profitable business, that sort of thing. Could you tell us a bit more?
It's a charity in that it, as I say, it there's the charitable side. It all, the products that it is on will be making a profit. So the likes of Nestle and Cadbury's, they don't do this for the good of anyone other than themselves. They'll have a social contract. They'll be interested in the people who they work with, of course, but ultimately it's down to whether they make a profit. The foundation, the commercial side of it, so the stuff, the people that, the part of the operation that does the certification puts those badges on. Now, I don't know for certain, but I'm pretty sure that they will be a non-profit making organization. So it'll be a community interest organization. So they will make a surplus, but that will remain within the business, and they are paid by the likes of Nestle. So you can't just use the Fairtrade mark just off the top of your head. I can't suddenly decide to import coffee and whack a Fairtrade mark on it. I have to do sort of like pay them a license to use this. And then, as I say, there's the Fairtrade charitable side, which then kind of puts in the groundwork for communities to access, to be able to fulfill the need, to fulfill the requirements. So if I'm a farmer, I can't just necessarily buy into being a fair trade farmer. I will actually have to do some groundwork and ensure that when I'm doing, say, for environmental standards, I might have to be supported. I mean, we're not sort of like, it's not a barrier. They're not putting up barriers to getting fair trade. Sort of like, they want as many organisations to be able to do it, but they put them in a sort of the position to become a fair trade. So yeah, as I say, it's not a simple organisation necessarily to understand, hence why there's these questions. and I've probably not given the plainest of answers, but it's the best I've got at the moment.
Okay, thank you. The next question is actually, so for the past 11 months, we've had to struggle against the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, how has this affected the work of Fairtrade? Has this brought any difficulties towards resources, transportation, or the number of producer countries that Fairtrade is working with?
Yes, it's been trying for all of us, and I actually had to look this up because the easier answer is yes. We've had turmoil with COVID, we've had turmoil with Brexit, and all of these things have gone to, shall we say, disturb the flow of trade around. And whenever there's a flow of trade, there are winners and there are losers. And fair trade and fair trade producers has been one. And I've managed to sort of, as I say, there's been some winners, and out of like, there's thousands of products. So of course, let's hope that most of them are on the winning side of the product. But I just had a quick look, and things such as, here we go. So we've got the Kenyan Flour Council. They estimate that $300,000 of product is being lost a day. So of course, this is sort of due to that's 50 tons of flowers. So that's, we're probably buying fewer flowers. There's certainly fewer flowers being used for weddings and the like. So that's had an impact. So they're sort of the losers. No doubt that there are some winners. I did see where have we got. I think because we're at home, we may well be buying more coffee of some sorts. Of course, there's less coffee on the high street, but then we're all sitting at home. So there will be winners. There's some losers, and of course, there's limits. There's the impact actually of being a farmer and being in the community that's affected by the pandemic. So it's not just necessarily the trade. These are some of the poorest communities with the fewest resources to bounce back from something like a pandemic. If their community is impacted, then they're going to struggle because they don't have the medical advances that we've got. They're not, they can't throw money at this situation like perhaps we have done over in this country. So yes, it's going to be a trying time for them, but fortunately there's still plenty of fair trade products on the supermarkets in this country.
Amazing, thank you. Our next question is, where can we buy fair trade foods, and are they organic?
Right, interesting question. Where can you buy them? Since the likes of, as I say, I keep mentioning people like Cadbury's and Nestle, both of which are probably stepping a little further away from fair trade as we are, but they're everywhere. They're on the high street, they're in supermarkets, they're online. You've got the likes of Tradecraft that you can buy online. You can buy through sort of like direct sort of websites that have sort of fair trade goods. The organic isn't part of the fair trade mark, so you're not required to be organic to be fair trade. However, there are environmental standards to be met. So if you've got a farmer that is actively exploiting his environment or her environment, then you're unlikely to get the fair trade mark. So within the fair trade mark, there is an implicit standard around a fair trade, not fair trade, an environmental stewardship. However, with a lot of these standards, you'll find that you generally, where there's one standard, there'll be another standard. So often sort of organic can be associated with the fair trade mark. Sort of, you're doing the fair trade is more of the welfare, the society side, the economy side, but they'll also be very much engaged in the environmental protection, and they may qualify to be able to put an organic mark on there. So it's worth having a read of the labels and seeing what measures, what standards they adopt, because there's often a story behind all of these products.
Okay, that was a really good answer. Okay. Okay. So, as fair trade focuses on equal earnings that farmers and labourers may receive, they also investigate in raising specific product prices to the cost of sustainable production and above the minimum fair trade price, which is £1. And some people would argue that increasing product prices would increase difficulties for those already struggling financially in the UK. How would you respond to this?
This is where I consult my notes, because this all gets into the numbers kind of thing. Now, I suppose there's kind of two answers to this. There's the short answer and there's the not so short answer. The short answer is that today you can walk into any supermarket and buy non-fair trade products. So should you be struggling and should you not be able to afford the premium, it's not obligatory. It's not an obligatory environmental tax. There are some taxes you can't say, I can't afford the road fuel tax to protect the environment. That's a burden on me. So we have a choice whether to. But the one interesting thing was if you take your pound for your chocolate bar, say, 6p of that goes into your producer's pocket. So 94% is in the processing, the transporting, your intermediaries, and that's even with fair trade. It's generally speaking the person who grows the stuff. The money is in the turning it from something into a product rather than necessarily growing it. So if you double what the producer is paid, that only turns into a 3% increase in price. So that's not a lot. For some people it can be, but in terms of the benefit to the producer versus the cost to us in terms of where you're actually putting where you're taking the money from. But of course, a lot of businesses will absorb it. A lot of businesses would just say, well, that's the true cost. That's my true cost. I don't run my business at the cost of somebody else. So that's why a lot of companies choose to be fair trade, because they want to pay coming up to the true cost of it. There are probably going to be social costs and environmental costs that we don't fully pay. So in terms of yes, there are people struggling, but I would hope that 3p, 5p on a pound isn't excessive. And then there's the feel good factor that that you're benefiting other people. Anyway, we'll move on to the next question, unless you've got a follow up.
No, that was really good. That was great. The next question is there any way that we can help support fair trade workers other than buying the fair trade produce?
Right. Well, I mean, the best way is to buy fair trade, because after all, these people, just like you or I, we want to earn our honest day's living and not be subsidized or patronized by, if you were given the opportunity between earning your pay and earning less than your pay and getting it supplemented by somebody else from a charity, you're going to want to earn your pay. So being committed, looking for the fair trade marks and valuing that fair trade mark. Let me just flip back to my notes. I'm sure I've got there is the charity side, and you can give to the Fair Trade Foundation, and as I mentioned, they will put in the groundwork, put in the support to try and get farmers onto the into the process. However, again, don't trivialize that this is not about charity. This is about getting people up to onto their feet and supporting themselves.
Okay, awesome. We're leading up to last couple of minutes now. Becca, did you have any more questions or at all?
Yeah, there was just one more.
One more? Okay, amazing. Let's do that one.
What could the college do to be more fair trade friendly with a limited budget? Okay.
As I say, this is not about you raising money. This is not about you financing things. This is about influence. And as a college, the college is just about influence. You take people who are children and you turn them into adults by influencing them, educating them, and sort of molding them. So that can change. That's the sort of movement that we're looking for, that can change the world. Because if you change the mind of one student and they go home and they buy the product, now they live with parents, they might live in a shared house, they then communicate to them, and they might communicate that to one or two people. And if you can do that over 1,000 people over the college, you can really have an effect on how much demand there is for fair trade products. Because remember, fair trade companies who buy into fair trade and buy into the mark and put the mark on there, they want to sell their products, and if they know, as I say, they are doing it for social reasons, they're doing it for all of the warm fuzzy feelings, but in essence, if they can't sell a product, they won't produce it. If they can sell a product, they'll put whatever they can if it's going to sell. So I would say, talking to your fellow students, getting it does far more than necessarily trying to persuade your procurement department just to change all of the fair trade sugar in the staff room, for instance. So influence, get the word out and see how many people we can, because it is your generation that is really interested in this sort of stuff. So yes, influence will be my 3-word slogan for the day.
Yeah, I think that's really important as well, and voting with our money as students and as members of households as well is really important. So thank you so much, Andrew, for coming on today to have a chat about us. This will be available to the rest of the college to have a look at, and hopefully over the next couple of weeks, a Fair Trade Fortnight, it will be something that we think about a little bit more, or maybe in our coffee breaks we'll have Fair Trade coffee instead and things like that. It's the small changes that all of us together can make a bit of an impact. So I'll let you all get on with your day now, but thank you both for coming on as well to do the interviewing, and hopefully we've learned something today.
Okay then.
Okie dokie. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stop recording there.